Apes. 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 Hello, World Wide Web. I'm Dr. Shado, the internet personality with the best hair. This is week 8 of
the summer of the planet of the apes.
This week, I watched 11 and a half hours of the Planet of the Apes TV series. Originally aired in 1974, the television series, simply called Planet of the Apes, seemed to be Fox's answer to the question of how to continue making money on the franchise without technically making another sequel. While the series did pretty well in the United Kingdom, the ratings in the US were so dismal the show was cancelled after only airing half a season. But then again, other series have been cancelled a lot faster, so there might be something worth checking out here. So, let's take a look at 11 and a half hours of Apes. 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 The pilot episode, Escape from Tomorrow, opens with Royal Dano wearing a horrendous wig being chased by a chimpanzee child and his pet dog.
It's only a human.
And here we get our first glaring questionable continuity. As you remember in Escape from the Planet of the Apes and Conquest of the Planet of the Apes, it was well explained that all of the dogs and cats in the world were wiped out in this massive worldwide plague. But here, hey, we got dogs just fine, and they never question it. Of course, in those movies it was also established that the fall of mankind occurred sometime around the year 2000, but from what we see in this episode alone, mankind could have gone on at least another 600 or so years. So, at best, let's just say that this series takes place in its own timeline. Otherwise, we're never going to get past the first 5 minutes. Their activity is interrupted, however, when suddenly... yeah, that same damn ship. The chimp runs off, but Dano moves in to investigate, soon discovering 3 passengers, one of which they evidently couldn't afford to keep for the whole series, so he takes the others out to escape to his cave before the authorities arrive.
He's dead?
It's a human.
I thought I told you to stay outside.
And look, there are 2 more of them. I wonder where they are.
How the hell did you know that, kid? You ran off before bothering to check inside. Great, not even is there no connection to the movies, but there's no connection between events in the series itself. Evidently, they automatically fear that humans with such advanced technology will cause an upset in the social order and send a message out to Zeus. Not to be confused with Zeus. These events take place about 1,000 years before the events of the original Planet of the Apes film, and on the other side of the continent as well. It just so happens that a lot of these characters are... amazing coincidences. The humans in question happen to be Verdon, played by Ron Harper, and Burke, played by James Naughton. They come to with Dano elsewhere and have a difficult time figuring out what's going on.
I don't even remember what happened.
We were approaching Alpha Centauri. We ran into some radioactive turbulence and...
oh yeah! Radioactive turbulence! Yeah, I've heard that's much worse than the microwave gamma tides. And they decide to go ahead and make a good first impression with Dano.
I brought you something to eat. Food?
How dare you not ask what I wanted before going out? Where's my Domino's pizza? They want to get back to their ship to check the equipment, but Dano warns them to stay put for now so they don't end up in trouble.
So you'll be safe here.
Safe? From what?
The apes, of course.
And yet with humans, apes, and everyone speaking English, you still don't think you landed on Earth. Of course, they don't bother to heed his warnings and decide to go out for a walk to check their surroundings. And in about 15 seconds...
Yeah, well, we could have landed in a worse place, I'll tell you that.
They find out that, hey, the native knew what he was talking about!
Those were apes, weren't they?
Gorillas.
What kind of planet is this?
It's like this planet has an association with apes. I guess you could even say it's a planet of the apes. Fortunately, they have no problem dodging bullets and evading the gorilla cavalry to escape back into their shelter. Before long, Dano shows off his old book to the two of them, and they finally realize the obvious.
The year 2503. This picture was taken 500 years after we left.
Well, 478, but yeah, that's evidently when that picture of that drawing was captured. Back in Central City, however, Zaius and General Urko discuss the matter of the human spaceship along with Zaius' aspiring assistant, Galen, the chimpanzee, played by... Oh, do I even have to say it?
Must be found and quickly.
Yes, and killed.
No!
Zaius wants the humans captured and questioned, but Urko believes the only way to deal with them is to simply kill them outright. You'd think with the fact that they all pretty well agree they should die, there wouldn't be such a heated argument over exactly how fast they are killed. To get an idea of when they arrive, the men set out towards the ship to check the chronometer. Yes, it's official! They weren't clocks, they were actually time detection devices! But don't ask me how the fuck that's supposed to work! Dano distracts the lone gorilla guard, giving the two astronauts enough time to check the ship, which has already been ransacked, but fortunately not the part they were interested in.
The year 3085. More than 1,000 years in the future.
Screw the year! It's March 21st and the plants are bearing fruit! Dano only served as a temporary distraction, however, as the gorilla kills him and the huge group riding behind the spaceship emerges to take Verdun and Burke into custody. But in this commotion, Galen happens upon Dano's book, which he took along because, well, otherwise Galen wouldn't find it, and the things he sees makes him question his concept of history.
Apes were considered wild animals in those days. They weren't as intelligent as you are.
That is not true.
Sorry, Buster, it is.
That is not true. No, it's all lies. Apes have always ruled the world. Always!
Well, I do have to admit, it is very nice having an actor as skilled as McDowall in a series for moments like this. They are put on trial, but it's about as one-sided as you'd expect.
We don't intend any destruction.
You're human, aren't you? Would an ape have created such an instrument?
Urko, you had no right to take that.
And thus it is decided they should be kept alive until all the knowledge they have is extracted, so any future humans arriving from the past may be killed immediately. I just love how even the apes now see time-traveling humans as routine. They are imprisoned, but Urko still thinks they'd be better off dead. Galen, however, is intrigued by the questions of the planet's past, and Burke provides the plot synopsis for the series.
The input record of our flight is still aboard ship. Everything that happened from the time we left home until we landed back here on Earth is recorded on that magnetic disc. Now, all we have to do is run it through a computer, analyze what went wrong, reverse the process, and we can get back home again.
You're out of your mind.
What's a computer?
Later that night, the gorillas leave the cell unlocked to lure the humans into a trap, but Galen catches them and has a bit of an accident while saving their lives. Yeah, remember that whole ape shall never kill ape thing? Neither do the writers. The men sneak into Zaius' home to get the information about the origin of the grenade from him at, grenade point, but instead find out that Galen has been sentenced to death for murder and heresy, so they bring the orangutan along as a hostage while they work to break Galen out of the prison. It's awful nice how the wood doesn't break apart and fly everywhere and hurt anybody, it just simply disappears during the explosion. Gotta get me some of those grenades. Thus, they make it back to the ship, but within minutes the apes are on their tail, so taking the magnetic disc, they flee into the forest, their ship finally completely destroyed, and that sets up their random wandering across the planet of the apes looking for a computer capable of reading their magnetic disc. Or at least, that's what you'd think they'd be doing during the series, but sadly, after episode 2, we never even see the magnetic disc again. They don't lose it, it's just that plotline is completely ignored throughout the series. Episode 2 isn't bad. It's got an interesting struggle in one human village with gladiatorial games where Verdun must defeat the champion by using his backwards rolling kick over and over again, while Galen tries desperately to get on the prefect's good side and sneakily steal the magnetic disc back. Episode 3 is when things start getting cheesy. Verdun and Urko find themselves trapped in a small space and must put their differences aside and work together to escape the predicament. This episode has some entertaining moments, but a lot of stupid ones too.
One of the more advanced forms of nutrition. A meal and a pill.
A pill?
Yeah, a little thing, about like that. You swallow 3 of those a day, you don't have to eat anything else. Surely you remember that.
How could I remember that? I wasn't there. I didn't say I was there!
Why did everyone in the 70s think the future of food was meals in pill form? After this, though, the series falls into a very repetitive cycle where the humans find apes doing familiar things, but they're doing it wrong, so the men from the past show them how to do it better. Tasks such as farming.
Then when it rains, the furrows hold the water. It won't run off with your rich topsoil. And there are no gullies, see?
Look, Anto, it's true.
Fishing.
What is this? Fish by the dozens from some.
From a net, mighty Bandor. It can trap more fish in a few hours than your men could spear in a month.
Racing.
I never saw a horse go so fast.
Maybe that's because you've never seen a human jockey before.
Performing surgery.
There's no way of removing that. You better close up.
Wait a minute. Make a second incision, 3 inches below the first.
Curing malaria.
It's quinine. It's extracted from the bark of a tree called a cinchona.
And dealing with the KKK.
Watch it burn!
No, don't! No!
Yeah, the Planet of the Apes really needed a KKK episode. After all, the humans are treated so equally throughout the series. But to be honest, the KKK episode, episode 8, The Deception, is pretty good overall, mostly due to the very nice acting all around, with high marks for McDowall, and Jane Ackman as the blind chimpanzee Fauna, whom of course ends up falling in love with Verdun, while she herself absolutely hates humans.
I just don't understand how I could have thought I loved a human.
But after all their differences were settled, I didn't see why Verdun didn't just, settle down. I mean, she's pretty cute for a chimpanzee. Moving on. The 10th episode, The Interrogation, breaks the monotony a bit by having the apes immediately trying an old technique from human books, but they do still manage to do so in a fucked up manner.
Ah, yes, I seem to remember hearing something vaguely about that. Brain washing. Isn't that where you take the brain out of the skull and wash it with cool water?
No, you don't take the brain out of the skull.
You don't take the brain? Well, how can you wash the brain if you don't take it out of the skull?
And the chimpanzee interrogator never thought that maybe when the book says a female presence, it might mean one of the same species. There are 2 episodes that do require special notification, though. The so-called unaired episode and the final episode. The Liberator is listed as an unaired episode in the DVD set, though if my research is correct, it may have aired in places outside the US, and other sources do list it as having an air date, but nevertheless, it is a peculiar beast in itself. There's a settlement of humans who work with the gorillas providing slaves, and its backbone lies in the worship of a god whom kills without touching. Burke and Verdun naturally get captured and have to figure out a way to escape, but the leader's son doesn't give a flying fuck about any word they speak.
You must be made strong. The gorillas will not accept the weak.
That's like asking a turkey to sharpen the axe before Thanksgiving.
And it turns out he's just heartbroken that they are one potential slave short of their quota, and therefore will have to send off his girlfriend in the next shipment. Which kind of makes me think that they shouldn't have killed off that guy earlier, but never mind that. After they escape their confines, Burke and Verdun use the power of past knowledge to realize that the reason none but the priest can survive walking into the temple is because of the constant flow of poison gas and the priest's own secret.
An old gas mask.
To top it off, they find out he's been farming the gas to make homemade poison bombs.
You can't use this gas. You can't control it. You can start by killing apes, but you can wipe out the whole planet.
Yeah, those dozen clay pots really look like they have the potential to destroy the entire world. If that's not enough, a confrontation erupts, which ends in the destruction of the temple and all the stored jugs of poison gas. Which, while obviously not enough to destroy the world, should have been enough to snuff out the lives of all of those directly outside the cave. But for some reason, the poison gas just, doesn't work anymore. And we end this episode learning that he really didn't like the apes and wanted to join forces with the meadow people he's been hunting for slaves against the apes all along. Yeah, so easy to just completely discard a lifetime of religious upbringing on a whim just because the plot says so. Well, now the final episode, Up Above the World So High. This follows a predictable pattern that the rest of the series set forth, but there are interesting things to note about it. For starters, even though they spend most of the episode saying the one design for the glider is flawed and will never fly, we do see it flying well enough early on. But never mind that. Can't fly. Burke and Verdon must use their past knowledge to build a working hang glider. I know astronauts are generally smart, but just how the fuck many things do these people know how to do? We see them build windmills, handmade batteries, specify how a racing horse's shoes should be made, and yet they need to find someone else who has a computer and can make a spaceship? What for? Just make one yourselves out of coconuts! But the apes soon hear about the flying machine, and Carcia, played by Joanna Barnes, is interested not in snuffing it out and killing all the humans as usual, but instead wants to see it completed. Of course, Urko is there as the cartoony villain who just wants to cut to the chase and get to the killing, but what I really like about this episode is when Galen does his usual thing of taking another identity to get in good with the apes, it actually sparks some interest between him and Carcia, which leads to some honestly funny moments.
Well, there's something I'm trying to remember, we wanted to talk to you about, sir.
Your servants don't seem very bright, Protus.
They're not. Yeah, go!
But then comes the big twist, that her interest in the flying device is so she can use it to carpet bomb the gorillas and orangutans out of power, ascending chimpanzees to what she feels is their rightful place as the masters of ape society. Gotta love how the opinion of human technology has shifted from completely forbidden to alright when it's convenient. They don't have enough time to destroy the prototype or escape, so Galen and the inventor are sent out to do the test flight with guerrilla troops designated to kill them should they try to escape. Naturally, they try by flying out into sea and crashing the glider.
They're dead. And so is the secret of flight.
You know, I've seen a lot of conclusions jumped to in my time. But this? Burke and Verdon come out of hiding with the raft to save them, and thus the series ends with the group still wandering aimlessly with no intention of progressing the plot. Well, that was the Planet of the Apes television series, and I have to say, apes. 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 To be fair, it is entertaining, but I certainly don't recommend anybody to watch the whole series in one sitting like I did. Burke and Verdon do well as lead characters, with Burke pushing the group to do what is right, and Verdon standing as the voice of reason most of the time. McDowall's character Galen is also entertaining to watch, as his habit of taking on different personas keeps the performance fresh. The initial plot is pretty interesting, but sadly it's discarded so quickly. The bulk of the series is just the humans from the past solving silly ape problems with old knowledge 90% of the time, and Urko standing in as a campy cartoon villain, always involved in whatever the current episode's story revolves around, no matter how contrived. The acting is good for a TV series, and the makeup looks great in most instances, except the scary-looking Zeus. And while the sets are very nicely done, it's hard not to get a Flintstones feel from some of the props they pull out. Overall, the Planet of the Apes series is an entertaining watch for fans of the films, but most of the episodes are sadly pointless and very repetitive, reeling in 3 obviously intelligent humans out of 5. Even with its flaws, though, if it had been given enough time on air, it really could have become something great. Of course, it probably would have helped if they had come out with it right after the first Planet of the Apes movie, instead of dragging the movie series into the ground before doing this. Oh well. Thank you all for watching. I've been Dr. Shado, and remember, oh, for fuck's sake, I'm filming! You? What?
You don't take the brain. Well, how can you wash the brain if you don't take it out of the skull?